Hello, Faith to Feet family. So we are back, and this is part two of the vision of a woman and where that all begins. So today I'm back with my special guest, Dr. Timethia Bonner. So today is a continuation of that conversation. If you haven't watched that conversation, please go back, and it's called The Vision of a Woman Where It All Begins. And this one will be part two. All right. So, Tamithia, you and I left off that conversation. We were talking about sayings that our fathers may have had, or mantras that stuck in our head. And the one that you said stuck in your head the most was "keep it in the road."
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how our fathers play a major role in our lives as far as our self-esteem, our confidence. Today, I want us to talk a little bit about work ethic, and did your father's work ethic impact you, or how did your father personally impact your work ethic as well? And not only that, when we talked about the mantras, I remember my dad, he used to say this one saying that just gets stuck in my head. He would tell us that excuses only satisfies the one that makes them. And that stuck with me. So a lot of times I try to make sure if I cannot do something, it means I've tried as many ways as possible to see if that thing would work. Still want to stay true to not, thinking that people want to hear your excuses, because they don't. And I get what he was trying to say to us. So, has your dad, or how has he impacted you with his own work ethic?
So being raised in the country on a farm, of course, you got to get up early anyway. My dad had chores before he went to school. So
Right.
that whole idea of an impeccable work ethic, it starts, you know, him being a boy on a farm trying to get chores done, work done before he even, had to go to school and then come home and still have more to do. And
Hmm.
on top of that, being responsible for younger siblings after his father passed. So all of that just spun into the father that he became for my sister and I. When it comes to, my dad, butt crack of dawn,
Hmm.
feet hit the floor.
Well,
Feet,
okay, okay. Wait, you said before the crack of dawn, his feet hit the floor. So, what time do you get up to do your workouts every day?
me now, I'm in.
Okay, not a now. Just when I first met you, what time were you hitting the track every morning?
Oh,
It was still dark outside.
oh yeah, it's all. It's I don't. If I'm working out when the sun is out, I'm irritated. Um,
Hmm.
Now I'm in the gym about 3 a.m. But I wouldn't be at the track before. I would be at the track before 5 a.m. when I would hit.
5 a.m. and now in the gym at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all hear that, Faith to Feet
Mm-hmm.
audience? You hear the impact her father has had on her own work ethic. So if she's outdoors working out, she's out there at least by 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
If she's inside the gym working out, she's there at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh yeah.
So that is some work ethic. She's putting work ethic towards just her physical body. We're not even speaking about the educational part yet. Her career life. This is just the importance of her physical body.
To this day, when I go home and I get up early to go to the gym, you think my daddy ain't up? He is up. He is walking me to the door and making sure nothing is at my car. Like he's up. Like
Hmm.
that type of routine never dies. And I'm
Hmm.
like, he can do it. Surely I
Hmm.
can line up and take care of the things that I need to do. And I don't have nearly as many responsibilities or the magnitude of responsibilities that he had. So
Hmm.
even just thinking about it, it's just like you really have no excuse not to get up. And
Hmm.
I think when I had a conversation with Jerry, we had a conversation just about fitness, and I was, I'm big on paying yourself first.
Hmm.
There's no better investment than you having in your health. And
Right.
part of me getting up so early is I wanted to make sure I paid myself first, get my
That's
workout.
good.
I wanted to, and I would get up, do my devotion, get to the gym, get my workout done, and then come home. And I'm a better person for my family.
Mhm.
That is
Mhm.
that is the thing that's worked for me. And there's so many times that, especially as I got older and I started rising earlier while my dad was still, commuting back and forth to work. And he would have that alone time with he's paying himself first
Mhm.
to get in traffic and go to work and deal with the hustle and bustle of all of that. He's up meditating, thinking on whatever it is that he needs to do, praying,
Mhm.
and himself first. Before
Mhm.
he gets on the road. So he has had a remarkable impact on my work ethic.
That is so good. And I like what you call it, paying yourself first.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Because we always say, if we're serving other people, we're no good to them if we're no good to ourselves first, right?
yes.
So, yeah, and even for the things that God has for us to do,
Mhm.
like this vessel has to be in the shape that God needs it to be in order for us to do what He has to do, He has for us to do. So that's very important,
Mhm.
paying yourself first, because we're no good to anybody else. And,
I
um,
I used to do when I first moved to Texas, I would be doing community based research, and I was getting ready to be a part of a panel at a church, and I can remember sitting in the back of the church and the lady who was on oxygen. And she and I were talking, and she really had, no clue how to even use her tank. So I'm back.
mm,
Before I even get on stage, I'm trying to show her, like, okay, look, this is how you use this tank.
mhm,
If anything happens, you can't rely on your son or your daughter to make it to your house in time. You need to know what to do.
right.
And I remember sitting in the back of that church, and I told her, I said, we in Texas, so these are older black ladies. We know they cook. We know they throw down.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
How would you feel if somebody borrowed your Pyrex dish and
Mhm.
gave it back to you all broken and dingy? They gave it back to you, definitely not in the condition in which you gave it to them. That's how
Mhm.
it feels about our bodies. Like
Mm.
how you are supposed to take care of the borrowed vessel that he's given us. And it
Right.
don't have to be back in perfect condition because of course we're gonna age, but be a good steward of how you of your health. Be a good steward
Mhm.
of yourself.
Mhm.
So that's a part of that pay yourself first thing. So
Mhm. That's good. That's good. This borrowed vessel. I
mhm,
think even that, recognizing and understanding that it's a borrowed vessel. And if we, put the emphasis on that, then maybe it would help us to put some fire under paying ourselves first.
oh yeah.
Because, yeah, again, that's so important to serving. And that's what we all want to do, at the end of the day, is serve others, help others.
Help others.
Mhm. So, as far as your work ethic, we've talked about that when it comes into play with your working out. Do you feel like your dad has impacted any other areas of your life based on his own work ethic and what you observed?
Mhm. The impact they had as far as my career, academics, all that, it was very different between my mom and my dad. My mom was valedictorian, like she was really really on my sister and I, and I really thank her for that. My dad took a very different approach
Mm-hmm.
and understood that he instilled in my sister and I a particular work ethic. He didn't have to check on it. He didn't have to berate us about it. It was, this is what I've instilled in you. Did you do your best?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you did your best, I have no complaints. And that could have been a B, C. Did you try your best? Is this the best that you could have done? If this is the best, I'm still proud of you. But just knowing that even if the outcome is not A plus 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 plus, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't have you didn't have a voice in your head saying, well, you should have did this and you could have did that. No, he was never that force. You make sure now, Okay, you've come home with a B. I need you to take some inventory and figure out, okay, how could I have gotten an A?
Mm-hmm.
Not any type of, no berating at all. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's always just loving, encouraging. I mean, he does everything with this hug. My dad is a hugger. He does everything with this hug.
Uh-huh.
And so when he asks you, did you do your best? Is this the best that you? I mean, he's doing it with literally with his arm is
With
around.
his hug, with the
You
hug.
feel it, grace. So it's it I don't want to say that it made just being a high achiever easy.
Mm-hmm.
You just understood that you had that support even when being a high achiever doesn't work in your favor.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know
Because
though.
it's now we doctors, we know how grades can go left.
Mm-hmm.
That my he has a voice that I always hear in my head. Of course, just keep it in the road, keep it in the road, and that
Mm-hmm.
that has always, from the time I was little up until being an adult,
Mm-hmm.
a child with a family, baby, just hold it in the road.
And
So,
it reminds me too, Timethia, when you say how, even if it's a B or a C, his arm is around us, asking, is that the best that could do? And it reminds me of the scripture when we say he causes all things to work together for our good. So you saying being a high achiever, you was like, not that it's easy,
mhm.
but I had the support that I need. And I feel like that scripture came to my mind when you said, it was a hug at the same time of me not getting what I wanted to get, but I know I did my best. And the same thing with Christ, with God. He says to us, he causes all things to work together for our good. So all things mean the good things and the
And
not so good things. They will work together for our good. And us just having that affirmation, that being able to know that he will be there for us no matter what, is another example of your dad, as is Christ to us. Being parents is not easy, and I know you understand that because you are a parent, and I understand it as well. It's not easy, and it that after that alone, we talk about work ethic. That's a part of work ethic. I'm always talking to God because he is the greatest parent there will ever be.
ever.
Right? We talked about him last week being the everlasting father, that
Mhm.
his role in our lives will never expire, but
Yes.
also his wisdom concerning parenting
Hmm.
there will never be any other wisdom greater than his. And so even as I think about like my approach with them, as you were talking about your dad's approach,
Hmm.
I try not to approach parenting from my own experiences. And I know that sounds crazy and it sounds like I don't even know how you cannot do that.
Yeah.
It is hard, but because if you've had any trauma of any kind, that can really interfere with the way you're doing anything in life. Because think about it, like if we just said, I always say I came from a very small town. I think the population at the time was maybe 4,000 and something,
Mhm.
really, really small. And my whole thing of becoming a doctor was just getting out of the small town and getting somewhere else. And sometimes what people use to stimulate them or activate them into action is different things. And those
Yeah.
things can be trauma based. I don't want to use those things to motivate me always,
Hmm.
into being the best doctor or into being the best dad or the
Yeah.
best mother. And so I think, yeah, so my approach with my girls when it comes to parenting is I really do depend on God. I try less as possible, but I am human, to not focus on how I was raised outside of one thing. Outside of one thing,
Okay.
is the one thing is that I was introduced to Christ by my
Okay.
parents at a very young age. And that's the one thing that I do depend on. And I'm constantly talking to them about developing their own relationship with him.
Yeah.
And they're 14 now. So we've even come to the point where I'm telling them the importance of developing their own personal relationship with him so much that I'll say to them, as you do that, there will be times that I will say something or your dad will say something that may not line up with what you thought you heard from God.
Exactly.
And you will have to say, well, no, mom, I heard him tell me this. And I will have to say, well, you go with that. And I have always instilled in them like it's important to develop your own personal relationship with him. Because sometimes as parents, we may not want to admit it. We can miss the mark in even giving guidance to them. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that I'm capable of that missing that mark. So I do solely depend on him for real in parenting because he is the greatest of all times. He's the
And
GOAT.
was so
Oh,
good.
no, no. I take that back. No GOAT.
I remember you used to always say, God is not a God of confusion. And
Mm-mm.
even if you have three people telling you one thing, but you hear God telling you something, I love the fact that you said, you know, you go with what he said.
You go with what he says. And I tell them that now because I don't want them to be afraid to tell me, no,
Mhm.
this is what I heard God say. Now, if you telling me this what Susie told you, that's another thing. We ain't talking about Susie and Karen and Shaniqua. Like, but if you tell me, I'm stopping. I'm serious. I'm stopping. You say, no, mommy, that's God told me. Oh, okay. Um, but yeah, but I'm also cultivating a relationship for them to develop that personal relationship. And so yeah, I think that's important. And when you talked about his approach, yeah, man, because it can go left as you was talking about grades can go left. It
Yeah,
can go left parenting real quick. You're like, where'd that come from? That came from some trauma.
that
Because
came.
this little household, we ain't doing no popping.
You always fall back to what I consider your default settings. And your default
Mhm.
settings is how you were raised.
There you go.
Remember in childhood, okay, I turned out good. It can't be that bad.
Right.
The lady who used to take care of me and my sister, the one I was like, hey, you sure you don't want to come out of retirement and take care of type? She called me for my birthday, and that's a whole nother story. This woman is well in 93, 94, calls every birthday. She calls every single birthday. But we were talking about Titan, and she said, we've learned so much since we had to raise y'all. We've
Mm.
learned much about parenting and about communication since we had to, and that was so just strange, but in a good way that someone
Mhm.
that old could recognize that times have changed.
Mhm. Mhm.
Things that ways that you had to rear kids
Yeah.
when she was in her 20s and 30s, things have changed now that she's in her 90s and she was able to recognize it.
And the fact that she has, when you said the fact that she was able to recognize that and say that to help you get on a better path with your parenting. Because there are some parents that's, hell bent on how they are going to parent.
Oh yeah.
And,
And I'm a parent you the way I was parented.
there you go. And I'm a parent you the way I was parented. But yeah, I definitely appreciate that because we need to know that, hey, there were some mistakes that I made with you all. These are the things that I would not do if I had it to do it again. And
Mm.
you can see it, when they are doing when they're handling with the grandchildren.
Oh
But
yeah.
you're like, y'all doing something totally different over here. But those
Mother,
are things
really
also
different
that
grandpa.
they wouldn't even share that with you. So, grandparents, we need y'all out here telling us what would you do differently if you had to do it again? If you would do it again,
Yeah.
what would you
What
do
would
differently as far as your approach to parenting?
because my mom is a totally different grandmother.
Mhm.
She was mother.
Mhm. Mhm.
Totally different. Totally.
Mhm. Oh, that's so funny to me. That's so funny. I always talk to Amaya and I, and I'm always talking to them about we're in the present, but I'm always talking to them about the future. And I'm always talking to them about
Yeah.
being a professional and being a mother, and just being different things. Cause I'm like, okay, so in the future, you're practicing for your future right now. So
Exactly.
it's like I'm always trying to give them techniques on not just, being a mother or being a wife, but just being a person, being a woman. And it's futuristic when I'm
Oh
talking to
yeah.
them.
Oh yeah.
It's futuristic.
And understanding that level of patience. And I think that's probably one of the biggest parenting tools that I've gotten from my father is that idea of just be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Just just be patient. Just chill out. My dad is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. And when you have a 40-pound 2-year old who is climbing around your neck and not doing
Mm-hmm.
nothing that you telling him to do, I can hear him. Just chill out.
Mm-hmm.
Just and my dad is always, he's too young for this. 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 And I'm just like,
Ah, that's really good.
oh yeah. So that idea of exercising patience with your kid,
Mm-hmm.
just watching him, exercise that patience that I knew he exercised with my sister and I. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a it's a different vantage point when you have an opportunity to see it versus living.
Ah,
So
vantage point.
it really shapes how you approach your kid. It shapes how you approach your relationships as well. Because my dad is girl dad.
Mm-hmm. He's a girl dad.
And
You know,
he's very big on, I've given you the blueprint of how someone is supposed to treat you.
mm,
If you allow somebody to treat you the way that I've not shown you, that's gonna be on you.
that's gonna be on you.
That's gonna be on you. So
That's good, Timethia, because even when when you talked about the patience that your dad has, and that's so important in parenting. But let me tell you where I did see patience at. It was with Corey. Corey is so patient.
oh yeah.
And but you will always say this. You'll say, because I don't play any sports, y'all. I've never been a part of any. I mean, I used to be a cheerleader, that was it, but I wasn't a part of like basketball, softball, or anything like that. But I love sports, y'all. I love sports. And so Tamithia will always say, girl, you an athlete. But let me tell you something. I did not. I wasn't on any sports team because I would see how the coaches would be yelling and stuff. And I was like, no, I don't want to be talked to like that. So this show is the vision of a woman. So in my vision, men weren't supposed to be yelling at me. And
Yeah.
so I didn't want to be a part of something like that. So which brings me back to Corey when it comes to the girls. He is so patient with them. So yes, patience is definitely important when it comes to parenting,
Yeah.
because the girls and him, they definitely have a relationship that is very strong, but it is really based upon the way he is with
Mhm.
them. And it's like that patience, it's like, sheesh, I just didn't see it, and it was like, man, that is something to behold when you see a man with girls
Mhm.
like that. So that patience thing, girl, you own to something when it comes to parenting,
Oh yeah.
because it's so important. So it's another thing, Tamithia, that I know is important when it comes to parenting, that I have observed from your conversations with me about your dad, as well as just watching you in different scenarios. So again, I tell y'all all the time, whenever I'm friends with somebody, there has to be something about their core values, something about their value system that makes me want to be friends with them. You know, so when I would watch you with other people and talking about different things, or if your response, it would be your responses to certain things. It had your response to things like something that should make you upset or something that should make you angry. I felt like you had a balance to your anger. You had a balance to just anything that should have really like gotten you off your rocker.
Mhm.
You had a balance. And I really believe that parents give their children the ability to have that balance, to maintain, to stay steady. As you say, hold it in a rope. Keep your balance and hold steady no matter what's going on that really, you may not like. And I've watched you even with like advice that you've given people that we know, and it was like it was a steady advice that really I felt like only coming from a person that had that balance or had their father in their life to calibrate the emotional side of you, because we're all emotional creatures, but sometimes we say women are more emotional, and you can tell sometimes people that have been being parented by just a one-sided type of individual,
Yeah.
where it's all emotion or
Mhm.
it's all logic. And I feel like that there has to be a balance.
Right.
So What do you think about all of that?
Oh, I would say that is very true. But my father got that from having to juggle a lot of personalities when he was younger. His father told you his father passed when he was in his early 20s. So having to now step up, be this different figure for younger siblings and take on a different role with my grandmother. Like
Mhm.
it's learning on the fly, but he did a very good job of learning on the fly. My dad is one that pays attention. Like
Oh, Jesus.
he's a very, I mean, he's very attentive. He's very quiet. So like I say about you, like quiet people, they know what's going on. So he pays close attention to everything and everyone. So he understands. I approach this person like this, or I approach this person like this. So you see that enough, you begin to take on those characteristics yourself.
Mhm. You know what? Because I love being around women that know how to control themselves, that have like poise and like different situations where, you could have popped off. I was like, oh, wow, she ain't popping off. Why is she not popping off?
My and I tell you, my mom is a bulldog. Like and not in a loud type of way, but she is.
She's going to handle her business.
You can look at her and tell she ain't the one to play with.
She's going to handle her business.
That's exactly right. But my father's approach is just it is so very it's just so different.
Hmm.
Is I It is not like a a pushover type of.
Hmm.
My father has never raised his voice at us.
Hmm.
I've never seen my father and my mother argue. I'm 43. He was a person that balanced everything out. He leveled everything out.
Hmm. Hmm.
So he was the most interesting man to me.
Hmm.
Had all these questions for him.
So we can see that your dad has definitely impacted not
Yeah.
just your work ethic, the way you parent. I asked that question because to me, I have a big family. I'm always watching and observing, and I'm like, oh, do I do that? And do I do that? And it's not even a matter. Sometimes do I do that? I know that that is in my DNA to do that. And so it's like I'm even more observant of how I'm responding. And so that's why, again, I say I watched you in circumstances and situations respond in such a balanced way that it wasn't like, like I said, the real pop off. It
Mhm.
was like it was poised. And so I was like, okay, because I want to make sure I'm showing up in spaces and places the right way. And this is what her relationship is like with her father and with her mother. And I know they calibrate her responses. Like I was getting data on things that I know I needed that I didn't have. And
Oh,
that was really, really important to me because sometimes as women, we may look at something that we don't have and just, we may talk about it or act like something's wrong with it because we don't have it. And we know without a shadow of a doubt, a father relationship is something that you need
yeah.
because God sent his only begotten son. He is the everlasting father. He said, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased before he even did any miracles. And not only that, you remember in the Old Testament, the daughters of Zelepha, I know I'm saying this wrong. Zelophehad, he had those five daughters. And remember, Moses was rationing out the inheritances among the men, children. And they were like, look, our dad didn't have
Me
any
neither too.
sons. Right. So y'all just gonna give our stuff to somebody else. And I know that their dad had to have had an impact on their lives in order for them to even petition Moses. And then Moses said, well, let me petition God. And so I was just thinking about it. I'm like, man, this father thing for real, it's real. And sometimes we don't realize how we're showing up in spaces because we didn't have that. And we think I'm a boss chick anyway. I don't need that. And I'm like, child, yes, you do need it. You
Yeah.
need it.
Yes, because that balance, you need to be able to approach all, and of course always going to be a situation where, you know what, I probably should be a little bit lighter, but I'm about to give you what you actually deserve.
Mm-hmm.
I never once see my father take that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Never once seen him be out of character. Like,
Mm-hmm.
type of person that the satisfaction of you bringing me out of who I know I am as a person. It was almost like he had satisfaction in, you think you making me mad, but I promise you, I'm cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that he that's something he definitely instilled in my
Mm-hmm.
sister and I.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely instilled in us.
Yes, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's real healthy stuff. And again, we're both doctors. We want to be healthy, not just, physically, but
Yes.
emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We want to be
Even
healthy.
before emotional intelligence was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
fitness was a thing. I had that.
Mm-hmm.
I got that from
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
got that from him.
Mm-hmm. Ah, that's so good to me. Even before emotional intelligence was a thing, you had see that's the point. I'm trying to show us how having a healthy relationship with your dad and your mom that actually brings forth, it bursts your emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah.
It has a lot to do with your social intelligence. Really, because I mean, in my household, I always say, Corey has the gift of gab, and I do not. And I don't mind, being by myself and not talking. But he and our daughters, it's
Oh yeah.
all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
But
They
I
definitely
recognize,
got that from Corey.
yes, but I recognize my how I have impacted them as well as how he has impacted them, and it's like something that comes together, and it's like a good thing. It's a great thing. But I couldn't imagine if I was only impacting their lives, and they weren't
From
talking to
your
people,
perspective. Your
right?
perspective.
Right, right. So I always encourage people, and I always say, Amaya and I are two parent people. When they say, is that a daddy's girl or a mama's girl? They are two parent girls. That's what they are. That's what they need.
Now I,
And that's what everybody needs. So again, and I shared this before, I know that everybody doesn't have what you have, to me, in a father. We know that.
mhm.
But we do know who is the everlasting Father,
Yep.
and he knows what you need before you even ask him. So recognizing and understanding that, God is going to be that for you. He is the everlasting Father. That's going to be important in just saying, hey, I don't have everything I need, and let me go to the person who is responsible for giving me everything that I need. Right? There's some things that we may want and we think that it's a need, but it's actually a want. But having a father, y'all, listen, women, I'm telling you, the way you responding to your husbands, the way you responding to your kids, it could
Mm-hmm.
be the result of, either if you did have a father, faulty parenting, and you just need to deal with that and, go to some counseling or talk that out. But that balance in the way you respond to people,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna have a lot to do with that emotional intelligence that you getting from the way your father impacted your life positively or negatively.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
All right. So I guess we can end it, Dr. Bonner. Do you
Good.
have anything else to share with us?
I don't, but I can talk about that man all day. So
I know you could. That's why we had you on, because we needed that genuine conversation about what it looks like to have a healthy relationship between a father and a daughter. And you definitely gave it to us, and we appreciate you. And we will continue the series, The Vision of a Woman. So you all, I hope you keep watching, and I hope you stay tuned to this series. And I hope it's encouraging you and inspiring you and motivating you. So, Dr. Bonner, once again, where can we find you?
okay, on Instagram, FitDoc19. That's just, my fitness journey. I show videos
Mm-hmm.
of, my personal life. You see, my family, you see my workout. So things like that.
Okay. All right. All right. So again, Faith to Feet family, thank you for watching. Thank you for spending your time with us. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do it, and leave us a comment and like and subscribe. All right. Peace.